Is Lincoln Riley waiting until the transfer portal closes before announcing the guy who's going to be in charge of the defense? Transfer portal is open until January 16th. We're recording this episode January 11th, so we still got a few days left to go. And did any of you see the Navy All-American Bowl? Luke Wafle, Jameson Winfield, these guys are not going to be freshman backups for very long. Marvin, Powell III, and I, we're going to talk about that, a couple of other things as well in this episode of Locked On USC.
You are Locked On USC, your daily podcast on the USC Trojans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Fight on, everyone. Welcome back to Locked On USC, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is also the #1 sports podcast network. So whether you are watching the show on YouTube, you get to pick the platform, you get to download this podcast. This show is always going to be free. This show is always going to appreciate your support. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The college football playoff is here, and FanDuel is the best place to get in on the action all playoff long. So visit FanDuel.com to get your college football playoff profit boosts every game day. Welcome back, Marvin. Hope you had a great weekend. Look, it's just another day in the life and the search for USC's next defensive coordinator. We still do not know, and it's hard to believe. Think about this. The new year, 2026, it is literally already 2 weeks old, and we have no clue who's taken over for Anton Lynn. No idea. And it has to have been at least 3+ weeks since Lincoln Riley had to start putting out his feelers, because that's when the news kind of leaked about, Anton Lynn. He's playing footsie with Penn State 2 years in a row now. We know he's taking the job. So we're going to talk about this. Also, we're going to talk a little bit about recruiting news. By the way, I don't know if you saw it. USC had a great day in San Antonio. Well, the guys who are coming to USC had a great day in San Antonio. We won't talk about the bowl game any longer. Marvin, I got a couple questions for you. All right, enough of me pontificating. First, should a defensive coordinator have a say in who his assistant coaching pool will be? Because it appears that everyone from that side of the ball is returning, except for Anton Lynn. Second part of the question. Do you think Coach Riley is delaying the announcement because he wants to make sure the transfer portal window is shut, thus ensuring that everyone is locked in, at least for the next season?
Right. So, yeah, I think that the DC absolutely should have a say in who a staff is. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, that's how it's always been. The issue, obviously, with USC is we have some pretty good assistant coaches that we're really tied to, especially in terms of recruiting. Okay, some of our guys on defense are lead recruiters, and it's a situation where we just don't want to let that go. And those relationships are built with these high schools, and it just matters. So, and then with that said, we also have guys who have some type of experience. So USC feels good about that. But yeah, the DC is held accountable for that defense, every aspect of it. So, he has to teach his defense. He has to teach the staff his defense. And ultimately, he's going to want people who are familiar with his defense, his style of coaching. They know how he communicates. They know the ins and outs of this individual. It makes everything much more efficient when the guy who's calling the defense is able to hire his own staff, have his own staff, guys who he trusts, guys who he doesn't have to think twice about this. You know what I'm saying? He doesn't have to worry about, well, this is the old regime, and are they upset about the last or whatever, all the drama that comes to dealing with human beings in the workplace, to be honest with you, even when you're high-level professionals, as we believe these people are. Yeah, he should have a say. It's the norm. I can completely understand if that's the holdup, or that's part of the holdup, because when you look at how long it's been since the Danton news leaked until now, it's been forever. We're talking about weeks. This is ridiculous.
Let me just say this, Marvin, so you can, before you continue. Coach Riley has pretty much come out and said, these guys are coming back. It's kind of been leaked that, Belk coming back, Trovon Reed's coming back, Eric Henderson's coming back. So continue. I just wanted to kind of throw that in there.
I get all that. So I think it is a struggle because I'm assuming we're going to bring in a veteran coach a guy with experience, a guy who has his own standard and his own way of running the defense. And that can be impacted by guys he doesn't know. So I completely understand if a DC's having an issue with that. With that said, USC has known that Danton's leaving for almost a month now, I feel like, okay? And I do believe that they have an idea. I haven't heard this, but I would have to believe, because I think that I believe Chad has a plan. I think Jen has a plan. I think they've had a plan. These coaches always have contingencies because coaches do leave. So I think they have an idea as to who they want. At least I hope they do. And because of the reason you mentioned, how it impacts the transfer portal and young players being emotional, being attached to certain coaches, the possibility of we bring in a DC, that's not who the players want, so the players leave. That's the reality of college football and where we're at. That's not a USC problem. That's just you can argue it's a problem to a degree. We can. But that's just, the freedom and the flexibility that these kids have, and they're used to it. They don't think twice about it. You know what I mean? So if Lincoln is being strategic in announcing the coach, I can understand that. I don't love that. I would assume that players know. I would assume that, obviously staff, they know what's going on. But yeah, it's really for a fan, for an alum, as a former player, this is a prized position. This job is a prized position. Okay, Los Angeles, USC, being able to coach the number one recruiting class, whether on defense, all these guys we have coming in, it's a luxury, it's a pleasure. So it shouldn't be an issue of finding a guy. But I understand if they're delaying why they reveal a name.
Yeah, look, I know there's a little bit of a negative connotation when you're trying to not be so much deceptive or being deceitful, but saying, well, we're not going to make, and this is not the official school position, but kind of taking the position of we're not going to make our announcement until the transfer portal window closes. I don't know, is that a sign of a strong culture, or the players just have too much power right now? They're not happy. I'm taking my ball and I'm going home. If that's part of the strategy, okay. If that's how you have to play the game, okay. I'm not sure I'm a fan of that. Going back to the whole assistant coaching part of the aspect of this whole search, typically if you're a seasoned defensive coordinator, you got a big long resume, been doing it for a while, not your first rodeo, like you said, you want to bring your own guys along, or at least have a say in the matter, deciding who's going to be on the staff. There are a couple of veteran names who have been speculated lately. They're not saying they've interviewed. They're actually saying that, excuse me, these names they're in communication. One is Corey Batoon, who is Missouri's defensive coordinator. The other one is a real veteran guy, Gary Patterson, TCU's old head coach. So whether or not these guys are actually part of the equation or being interviewed, I don't know. It's just interesting that they're not saying they're being interviewed. The terminology that's being used is there's been communication between the two sides. I don't know what that means. Whatever. Excuse me, cannot get rid of this cold. I think we both agree, though, that it's probably taking too long. At this point, you might as well wait until the transfer portal window closes, but then make a splashy hire. Whether it's a Gary Patterson or you're getting the young man, not a young man, but the guy from Missouri, Corey Batoon, who's got a really good resume since he's been there, really good against the run, which is something USC needs. That's fine. I would just hope that you're not concerned about, the players who are already on the roster not being happy about who the choice is.
Well, listen, in the event that's the case, and I'm certain that you have players who were recruited by Henne, recruited by Trayvon, recruited by Belk. I'm certain that these guys are really attached to those coaches, and I get that. These are the guys that have been recruiting them since they were in high school, or recruiting them initially out the portal. These are the guys that went and sat at home with their mom and their dad. When they came in, it was that coach who, was the guy talking to them. So there's a strong connection there. A lot of these kids, they come because of the school, the pride, the program, but a lot of it is they'll come because of the head coach or because the assistant coach that they've been dealing with is so good at what he's doing the connection is so real that, from the player's perspective. And the coach feels the same way. And it's just, it's tough that these kids, they're younger, they're not as mature. They have a tough time, understanding that these things happen and people leave, people go. And at the end of the day, you're here for the university and to play for the Trojans. So I really do understand that. I don't like it. I don't think it speaks a lot. I don't think it speaks a ton to culture more than maturity, and just feelings and emotion. I think that's really the bigger thing there. In regards to these coaches that you're naming, these are all good coaches. I mean, they're good coaches, but you're right. It doesn't, for me, it doesn't have to be a splash hire, but it does have to be a home run. It has to make sense. The coach you bringing in here better have a resume, and that resume better say elite defense, tough defense, consistent defense, against the run, the pass, turnover. I mean, we need that type of dude, to come in here. We don't, no guessing games. No, I wonder if this guy's ready. None of that. We're not at that stage. We're at the stage of it's year 5. And this will give us a great idea about if Lincoln really gets it. You know what I'm saying? Because we've been talking about he doesn't understand the culture. He doesn't understand it. He doesn't want to run the ball. And he's evolved as a coach. He really has evolved. We've seen it. He's running the ball more. But if he gets this right, this will let us know that he's thinking the way we're thinking. He's seeing what we're seeing. He wants what we want. And that's a certain type of MFer to get in there, a certain type of SOB who has a track record. So, yeah, I'm excited about this. It's been too long. As I said, I think Lincoln's being strategic in what he's doing. I don't love it, but I think it's just what college football is. These kids have options, and, the options outweigh anything else sometimes.
They definitely have options. I mean, later in the show, you and I'm going to get your thoughts because you never had a chance to chime in on this. In the third segment, we're going to give our final thoughts on Husan Longstreet. Because speaking of options, it looks like he's picking a really good one. He's taking a visit to LSU with Lane Kiffin right now. But I wanted to ask you in the next segment, we know USC has got some really good young defensive linemen that are going to be second-year players in 2026. Jakeem Stewart, Floyd Boucard, just to name a couple. There was a couple of guys at the Navy All-American Bowl game over the weekend who really flashed. I mean, I'm starting to ask myself, okay, I get it, high school all-star game, but these guys might be ready to contribute right away when they show up to USC. And I'm not talking about playing against Fresno State and Louisiana. I'm talking about playing conference schedule. I want to get your opinion on that coming up next. The college football playoff is here. The championship game is here. And FanDuel has given all customers even more ways to get in on the action every single game of the playoffs. Because right now, every college football playoff game day, FanDuel users are getting a profit boost, and it's just waiting for them in the app. Here's what I love about it. You get to use the profit boost on the bets you already feel good about. You can ride the favorite when you think a team controls the matchup. Or you can take a shot on the underdog if you feel an upset coming. And here's your third option. You can try and build parlays around the players and the moments you think decide the game. Then you apply the profit boost and go after even bigger winnings. When you win, FanDuel is going to pay you out instantly, which is perfect for a college football playoff game. FanDuel is the best place to get in on the action all playoff long. So visit FanDuel.com to get your college football playoff profit boost every game day. Thank you again, everybody, for making Locked On USC your first listen every day. And also, thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. Okay, Marvin. So USC's #1 ranked class of 2027. He's got a commitment. His name's Aaron Washington. Plays cornerback, modern day. He actually made the announcement nationally during the Navy All-American Bowl. And I'm speaking hyperbole here. USC does not have the #1 2027 class yet. Just figured I'd get started early. He's 6 foot. He's 160 pounds. Again, he plays at modern day. He is USC's first commitment in the class of 2027. I'm just hoping by the time he shows up, everyone will know who USC's defense coordinator is.
Right.
Hopefully. Here's the thing: USC is off to a strong start. You got the connection at Mater Dei. You got that pipeline flowing with Aaron Washington. You've got his teammate Danny Lang. USC feels really good there. And then there's also another player, another defensive back, plays for another school, Duvet Williams. Again, USC in a strong position for all three of these guys. They already have one of them. I want to talk about 2026. A lot of time to talk about 2027. I want to talk about some of the guys who are going to play early, and they're going to play often. During that Navy All-American game Saturday, Luke Wafle, he took home the MVP. Here's why. 3 sacks, which is a game record, 3 tackles for loss, multiple pressures, a fumble recovery. Here's your MVP trophy. Take this home. Jameson Winfield, defensive lineman, interior guy. Literally maybe the best defensive lineman all week long during the week of practice. He was flashing all over the place during the game. I love his burst. I love his burst off the ball. It's incredible. Let's start with those 2 guys. I don't know how much you got to watch, but if you just saw the highlights, you probably saw enough to say, okay, Luke looks like he's been in college for 3 years already. Jameson looks like he's ready for college. Can these guys play right away and make an impact?
Listen, USC signed 34 guys this year. Okay, we signed like 20-something blue chippers, and because that number is so high, and I know it's the number 1 class, and that's really not just based on quantity but quality. If you look at these guys, you know that some of these guys are going to pop and they're going to hit. They're going to hit soon. You know what I'm saying? If a dog's going to bite, he'll do it when he's a puppy. And you don't know which of these guys are going to pop. You know, and out the gate, I was like Pepe for sure, Tom, and these guys probably will too. But when I saw Luke and I saw Jameson out there, I got way more excited about this upcoming class and who these guys are. These guys are going to play as freshmen. They're going to, and when I say play, they're going to be in the rotation. Listen, Luke looked like, I heard him being compared to Von Miller, which, you watch him play, his bend, his power, his explosion, the way he accelerates. I mean, he looks like he's ready right now for the combine. His kid looks so good. And I know it's high school. Granted, it's upper level. You're talking about the best players in the country are out there. It is high school and it's an all-star game, and I get all that. But still, when you just watch his explosion, you just watch his get off, you watch his technique for a kid who technically is a high school senior, in his size, this kid's ready to go. Jameson Winfield, he looked like an NFL D lineman. He looked like he'd been playing in college football for 4 years already. This guy is huge, athletic, powerful. I knew that we'd have impact guys, but these guys can really come in here and make plays. I believe that. And I think we have multiple guys. You mentioned 2 of them. I think we had 6 in the game. And, listen, I liked all of our guys. We had an O-lineman, I believe. We had a running back. We had
Sean Renaud,
Yep. Right. Dixon Wyatt. Exactly. But no, Mark, you hit it on the head, man. When you look at what's been hurting us last couple of years, it's our defense, and it's specifically our defensive line. And we all said when Lincoln got hired, we need big guys. We need those big guys. We got them, and they're not just big; they're athletic and they are playmakers. That's the thing about defense that we missed this year. I really feel at D line and at linebacker, we didn't have those impact playmaking guys doing it consistently. You know what I mean? We saw some of our younger guys make plays. We had other guys make plays, but we didn't have those impact playmaking defensive players. And Jameson Winfield and Luke Wafle, they are the players that we need. I've talked all year about we need a nose, we need a 1, we need a 2, a big interior defensive lineman who can be athletic. He's it. He to me, he looked, that boy looked good.
So I just want to kind of remind everybody, we saw flashes of brilliance from Jakeem Stewart and Floyd Boucard last year. Floyd Boucard, he was injured for parts of the season. Jakeem Stewart was playing with a broken foot all season. Now, these guys are going to be second-year players. I'm going to assume they're going to be 100% healthy when the fall rolls around. Now you start stacking them up with guys like Luke Wafle, with guys like Jameson Winfield. All of a sudden you're going, okay, they're young guys, but this is a different level of talent that USC's had recently. You can see there's yes, there's been the Cam Crawfords and the Braylon Shelbys and the Anthony Lucases. But then you see these guys are like, all right, this is why you're paying the big bucks for this class. Right. These are the most sought after guys. Jameson is the number one defensive lineman in the state of Texas. He's not going to Texas. He's not going to A&M. He's not even going to Texas Tech with their billionaire donor. He's coming to USC. Luke Wafle, he could have gone to Ohio State. He could have gone to Penn State. He could have gone anywhere he wanted. He turned down Ohio State to come to USC. This is a type of talent that when you start stacking, you're saying, okay, all right, I get it. It is about the Jimmies and the Joes.
100%.
And now you got Eric Henderson and you got Sean Nua. It's up to them to refine their technique, teach them those little tricks of the trade so they can make that impact. And I'm thinking these guys are going to be part, like you. They're going to be part of the rotation. They're not just going to get a big bunch of run in the first couple of games out of conference against Fresno and Louisiana. I'm talking about conference schedule, playing during important parts of the game, maybe being in the game at the end when it's you need to make that stop. We'll find out. I might be way ahead of myself.
No,
but yeah, USC had a really good weekend in San Antonio. We're talking about Luke and Jameson. You mentioned the offensive lineman Vlad Diakonov.
Yes.
He had by far the best week of any offensive lineman out there.
Mm-hmm.
The national analyst said he was the only guy who was able to win his reps against these, against guys like Luke Wafle.
You know what I love, Mark, is he's one of the guys who when he signed, obviously we made it a big deal because it's USC and we love our guys, but he wasn't even one of the guys that we really celebrated. He was a lower star guy. This is Chad and Lincoln watching film and really watching the player and seeing things that they love in a player that maybe some of these recruiting experts that don't understand, don't realize, they don't have the same perspective. You know what I mean? And for him to go as a 3-star lineman who dominated in the All-American game and during that week, again, this makes me feel even better about this class coming in, guys coming in who are going to have impact. Listen, we have a really good coaching staff. We love, Zach Hansen and Henny. We're giving them guys. We're giving them talent. We're giving them some real alpha dogs. And we want to see these guys coach and get these guys ready to go because listen, I know what it's supposed to look like. When I'm looking at a player in high school, I have a very good feel for what it's supposed to look like. The guys that we had in that game, oh my God. Listen, you hear that it's the number one class, but when you're watching it and you see it, and you see that all these guys going to SC, and these are the guys who are dominating in this game with these other young talented players, man, you have to feel good about yourself as a Trojan fan.
Of course you do. Look, we barely mentioned cornerback Brandon Lockhart's name. We barely mentioned the running back Deshaun Rideau's name. We barely mentioned Caden Dixon-Wyatt, who had a great week at wide receiver.
Right.
USC is bringing in some dudes. And this roster it's getting deeper, it's getting better. And yeah, whoever is coaching this team, he's going to have a lot of players to work with. I'm not talking about head coach. I'm talking about assistant coaches.
Right.
Okay, so we got one more segment to go. I didn't get to talk to you when it happened. I'm going to get your thoughts on it. Houston Longstreet, no longer part of the program. He's into the transfer portal. I don't think it makes that big of a deal. I know I was talking about it last week and why I wasn't happy about it, but that's a different discussion compared to why it's not that big of a deal. And I'll explain why coming up next. The new year is here, and it's the perfect time for you to reset your routine and refresh your space. If you're spending more time at home, you might as well love how it looks and how it feels, right? That's why you should probably turn to Wayfair. It's a one-stop shop for getting your home back on track. From bedding and mattresses to storage solutions for every room, Wayfair makes it easy to start their year fresh. Wayfair has everything you need for a full home refresh, and you can do it all in one place. Whether you're updating your living room, organizing your space, upgrading your work from home setup, Wayfair's huge selection makes it easy to find exactly what works for you, for your style, and your budget. And I love that you can find pieces that match every style, and you're not going to spend a big fortune. Shopping is easy, delivery is smooth, and everything arrives exactly as expected. Get organized, refreshed, and back on track this new year for way less. Head to wayfair.com right now, and you can shop for all things home. That's WAYFAIR.com, Wayfair. Every style, every home. All right, Marvin, I want to get your thoughts on this. The Husan Longstreet transfer. I mentioned at the top of the show, he's visiting LSU, Lane Kiffin. I think this is actually a really good spot for him. Here's why I don't think this is really that big of a deal for USC. USC, Lincoln Riley, they are in the exact same spot they were in at this position at this point last year. You had Jade Mayaba was your starter. Husan Longstreet, true freshman, who was going to be the backup. Sam Heward is your emergency third-string quarterback. Fast forward 1 year later. Jade Mayaba is your starting quarterback. Jonas Williams, true freshman, is coming in. He's learning the system. He is the future. He's going to be the backup quarterback. Sam Heward is returning to be the emergency third string. I think this is why Lincoln Riley, I don't think anybody really put up that big of a fight. Because, look, we might be one snap away from playing a true freshman, but the difference is, had Husan stayed, at least he had a year in the system. By the time we get to fall camp, Jonas is going to have the exact amount of knowledge, experience that Husan had last year when USC started the 2025 season. What are your thoughts? Do you care? Does it matter?
Well, first of all, Husan Longstreet was a big recruit. Obviously, we got him from A&M, and I was really excited about this kid. I like his interviews. I like his demeanor. Everything you hear about him is positive, So, and I love our guys, man. These are my brothers. I love them to death, and I root for every single one of them. I hate that he left. I hate that that's what this is, but I understand. I get it. He's a really talented kid. He's good enough to start right now for a Power 4 team, no doubt about it. I'm saying that based off of everything that I saw from in high school and the things that I've heard about him. And then obviously the little bit he played, you saw flashes. So, I think this kid can get out there and play and make some money. So if he wants to get his career started a little bit earlier, I hate it, but I get it. Now on the flip side, I'm like you. I've seen Jonas Williams play. Listen, he's nice, y'all. If you haven't seen this kid play, he's nice. I mean, he looks like a little bit of Caleb, which is should make you feel very good. I'm not saying he's Caleb. That's a lot, right? But when you see him play, the mobility, the arm strength, the accuracy, just throwing the ball on the run. I mean, he looks like he's it. And then at these Elite 11s, he did really well. I think he went into some of these competitions ranked lower, but my understanding is he had outstanding performances, at least on the final day where I guess it really mattered. But we're getting a guy. Like to win in college football, you have to have a certain caliber of quarterback. We have it in Jaden, no doubt about that. But in our backup guy, in regards to Jonas Williams, yeah, he's in that same mold of Husan Longstreet, and I think he'll do very good for us as the backup quarterback. I hate to lose Husan. It sounds like he's going to LSU. Probably a good fit. Listen, I know USC fans feel different. I'm not a Lane hater. I like Lane Kiffin. I do. I think he's a good coach. I think he's come a long way, and I think he'll do right by this kid.
Yeah, look, better LSU than say Oregon. USC fans would lose their insides. From what I understand, Dylan Raiola, Nebraska's quarterback, he's taking a visit up there to Oregon, so we'll see how that works out. I'm wondering if that means Dante Moore is returning. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. Look, my whole thing with the Husan Longstreet thing was this. Number one, for those of you who left comments, this has nothing to do with Husan not wanting to compete with Jonas. That wasn't his competition. Okay. That wasn't his competition in 2026. His competition was trying to get on the field, getting some playing time. Now, had he played in the bowl game, would that have changed things? I don't know. Couldn't hurt. But he's put himself on a timeline where he wants to be on the field. That wasn't going to happen at USC, apparently. So he's now looking for the best opportunity for himself.
Yeah.
Is LSU going to compete for a national championship in 2026? Probably not. However, he's going to be able to. He'll be able to jumpstart it. He'll probably be the starting quarterback, and then boom, you're starting your time clock again. It's a reset, but at least you're the starting quarterback. So, on that side of it, I get it. I totally get it. I understand where his dad's coming from. He's made some pretty strong comments. Don't necessarily agree with all of them, but this is how it is in college football today. You're not going to have a 2.5-year starter at quarterback and then have a 5-star waiting behind him for more than a year. That's not the schedule anymore. 5 stars want to play within a year. And if they're not playing within a year, they're scrambling to find a program where they can. So that's where we're at. Basically, USC is 2026 all over. It's going to be just like 2025. Mayav is your starter. You've got the young protege. You got Sam Heward. There it is. That's where we're going. Any other notes from you, Marvin? Anything else you want to say before we check out of here?
Listen, I'm ready to get the season started right now. I know we have the big game coming up next Monday, but with everything that's happened with our season, the way it ended, and then with the optimism that I saw in this high school all-star game, and these guys are on campus now. We have our freshmen on campus. I'm ready to get this thing going. I'm already thinking 2026, and I'm just waiting for Lincoln to tell us who's going to be running our defense.
You and me both, man. You and me both. So we'll let you know when we find out who the defensive coordinator is. Winter conditioning workouts are starting to get going here. I think the team officially gets together around the 28th of January. But yeah, young guys are coming in. They're moving into their new homes, getting acclimated. They're getting introduced to Lonnie Maddox and Trumaine Carroll, the strength and conditioning coordinator and coaches. So yeah, it's a fun time to be a freshman at USC. And like you, Marvin, I cannot wait for spring camp to get here. So maybe we'll get a spring bowl game, a spring game. Hopefully.
Or at least can our basketball program win some games and make me feel good about,
They got that gut check win against Minnesota. They did beat Minnesota. Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah.
They went to overtime. They got the win. They're hosting Maryland this week. And then later in the week, they got another home game. I think Northwestern off the top of my head. I'll let you know on this next episode of Locked On USC. So until then, everyone, you know what to do. Marvin, you'll be back later this week. Thanks again, my man.
Thank you. You're welcome.